Now pay attention, 007. I've always tried to teach you two things. First, never let them see you bleed.
And the second?
Always have an escape plan.
Hey, how's it going? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm that one Bond guy, Chris Morales here, with none other than Mr. Creighton. We're going to discuss something that a lot of us, it's funny because it's a perfect time video to do because we're amongst the movement of the Fleming Reading Challenge. And today, although we are a little bit ahead, depending on when you see this, I know David Zaritsky from the Bond Experience started the challenge. And they just finished up Casino Royale, but we're going to be hopping into Live and Let Die. This is another episode of Fleming and Friends where we get on and I bring someone from the community and we just discuss the great novels of Ian Fleming and James Bond. So, Thomas, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, so like I said, we're going to be discussing Live and Let Die. This is the second Ian Fleming novel. And so, there you go. Perfect. So, let's just start off with initial thoughts. Like, when you first read this book, what did you think? How was your take on it?
Sure. I first read this, I think, in my first year at university. I just read Casino Royale for the first time. And that struck me as a really interesting novel. It felt like it felt very, very 50s, to be honest. And when I read Live and Let Die, it starts to feel a bit more like a Bond novel. You know, it seemed that Ian Fleming did his first novel and it was just his one great work. And then it seemed to take a bit of time to find out who was this Bond fella. And I feel this is one where we start seeing a bit more like kind of the character we tend to think of, the character we recognize. I start to see this as more Bond.
Nice. Yeah, so, I mean, I'll be honest with you, this whole COVID-19 situation, being at home, staying inside, really pushed me to dive into the novels. I, watched the movies, but I really wanted to get closer to Bond and Ian Fleming. And that being said, there's no better way than just hopping into the novel. So I know if you guys haven't seen it already, I discussed Casino Royale with the James Bond complex, Edgar and Matthew. And comparing that one for me to Live and Let Die, I agree with what you have to say. This one, you can definitely tell Fleming, he's established this character. He's getting sent off, to all, again, just another mission. And it's really interesting to see how he kind of expands this character more than what we've seen in Casino. So, that being said, is there a point in the novel that kind of just stood out to you out of the whole novel, or if there's a couple times in the novel that just really was like, this is great?
Yeah, I love the initial setup with M, as he explains just straight up who is Mr. Big, and weaves a bit of a story and weaves him into like a wider arc, so we see the connection to Smersh and the communist threats that was set up in Casino Royale. So I like the fact that there are kind of personal stakes, wider stakes. It's brought up to be big in the very first scene.
Right.
In chapter 2, actually.
Yeah. It was funny because, again, I've seen the book, or I've seen the movie rather, and when I was reading the book, images of Mr. Big just popped up in my mind, and I really was trying. It was really hard for me to kind of separate myself from the movie and the novel, but I kept finding instances where I just couldn't help it, but like, oh my goodness, what would it have been like? Because I'm thinking of Roger Moore's Bond, and it doesn't really match up with the Bond that we're reading in this, at least in my opinion. So it's kind of funny, to see the different Bond, but the same story. Although as we dive deeper into the book, the story really it wasn't the same as the movie at all. There was one part where actually another movie used from the book, which was really interesting. But it was really, really kind of cool to kind of imagine what Roger Moore would have done if he was kind of this type of Bond character, But then again, it's Sir Roger Moore, the gentleman. It's kind of difficult to imagine him doing that or doing some of the things in this novel, right?
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you're right. So when I read this for the first time, I'd just seen the Timothy Dalton films fairly recently, So yeah, I really saw Timothy Dalton in a lot of this
Yep.
book. He's got that dark presence. And then I think often, to be honest, if you go into the fantasy casting of it, I often see like a young Christopher Lee would have been a phenomenal Bond if it had been possible at the time to get like a
Hmm.
really young Christopher Lee and cast him, because he is quite a dark character in the books and a very serious character too.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting, and I love how you bring up Christopher Lee. Now that I never would have thought of that, but that is actually really perfect. That would have been really cool. Thomas, you need to be a director or somebody to make the next Bond film. I swear. If you can't be
In
the
my
next Bond,
dreams.
I'm advocating for you to be the next director of Bond 26.
I'd love it. Although I'd love to see Christopher Nolan's again. If we're going fantasy cast, I'd love to see Christopher Nolan direct a Bond film.
Ooh,
He seems to be doing everything but.
definitely. So it was really funny. I was reading the chapters where all of a sudden they're talking about the warehouse and the things hidden away in the warehouse, and I was like, wait a second, hold on, I've seen this before, I've heard of this before. What is this? And then all of a sudden, License to Kill. They took
Yeah.
that in License to Kill from Live and Let Die, and I had no idea that they did that. So for me, I'm sure a bunch of Bond fans are like, "What, Chris? What are you talking about?" right now in the comments. But I had no idea, and I thought that was such a really cool moment, and that was something for me what I was really looking for in diving into the books, is seeing how they pulled different pieces of the original books into the movies. But when you started reading that, what was your reaction to being like, "Oh my gosh, this is License to Kill"?
Mm. I loved it. I loved it, and a kind of a different experience for me when I read it for the first time. I didn't know about hardcore fans, frankly. There must have been message boards of some kind. There must have been podcasts, but I didn't connect with them. So I was reading it completely blind.
Mm,
So I didn't know what was coming up. I didn't have anyone else's kind of input, and so it was a huge surprise. Like I was turning the page as fast as I could to get to what happens next. Um, yeah, this is the original, and it's got a real life to it.
right, and it kind of makes you speculate. What if they would have followed? Would you think it would have made more a better movie if they stuck to the actual novel rather than the way that they took it originally? Because this was
I
Roger
wonder.
Moore's first film too. This was introducing a brand new Bond. Now, my question to you is, if they would have stuck Roger Moore, brand new Bond, whole new era, beginning of the era, and a book that was kind of dark, how do you think audience would have taken it?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting. I've seen Roger Moore in a couple of fairly dark films. Gold is a fairly dark film about South African gold mining, and The Wild Geese is a film about mercenaries in Africa. And he's phenomenal in both, but it's just that audiences loved him doing light-hearted stuff. So he could
Hmm.
definitely do the hard-edge stuff. I was just reading a comment here, but it's the little booklet that comes with the old DVD version, saying that at this time, kind of after Watergate and the Vietnam War, people just wanted something fun, they just wanted something light, and Roger Moore delivered the audience what they wanted.
Hmm.
Um, he has the occasional flashes, like in For Your Eyes Only, when he kicks a car, and that's kind of like a signal moment in Bond of how much it's
Yeah.
changed. He's got his dark moments in The Man with the Golden Gun. It's actually one of my favourites when he's threatening Lazar. So he does have these moments. But as I say, I think the audience at the time just wanted something light-hearted, and this was something you could take your kids to see.
Hmm.
So my brothers watched this fairly young. I watched this when I was still at primary school. I can't imagine many primary schoolers going to see a Daniel Craig film. It's just a different era.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah, I love that. And I also love the fact that they, comparing it to the film, I love how they kept it in New York.
Mm.
Just because a lot of people loved that, and I know it made it a really cool Bond location to go hunt. At least for me, it's easy to get to. And I know everyone on the East Coast is loving that because that's a great, really like down the street they can find a Bond location. But that the way that they set it up really kind of let the imagination really flow onto the screen. The way that they use the voodoo and Baron Samedi and all of that, and put it onto the film was really, really, really cool.
I
Are there
liked
any?
New York as a location. And when I was first reading a little bit more about Ian Fleming, I thought it was interesting that for the first book he stayed very, very close to home. And then the second book, he goes to New York, where he had been on official business. So he kind of writes his early books very, very, very close to home territory.
Right, definitely. Are there any parts of the movie that you really wish they would have kept from the novel?
Again, I think I see them almost in two different universes.
Okay.
So I don't have too many special requests, except perhaps one small thing, and maybe it's an unusual thing. But I love that Ian Fleming always has his books, it's almost like a travelogue. So there's much more travel, and you get into the food and the curious quirks of the place. I do feel the old films often do that quite well in terms of lively characters. We can talk about J.W. Pepper at length, I'm sure. But I mean, again, I was reading through this, and so there's a fellow named Edward Biddulph who does a book called License to Cook. He's got a blog. So I've been taking recipes from there and trying them out. And I had one of my best experiences was just trying all the recipes in this book.
Nice.
Whether it's homemade hamburgers or butterscotch sauce or I think one of them was boiled egg, which you then shell and you mash up and put into a cup. Which I think is horrendous. I agree with the literary bomb that is a horrendous thing to do. But I've tried it. It's in the book. Oh, and Maryland fried chicken. So I think we've all heard of Kentucky fried chicken, but actually Maryland fried chicken has the edge for me now.
Wow, my goodness. I feel so sorry for the people watching this either in the morning or late at night that are really hungry. This is not the video that you guys are supposed to see, but there you go. You said that it's a book, License to Cook?
Yeah, it's a book written by an English hobby chef. So he's a full-time archaeologist. I've heard him very rarely on a podcast, but he's a very friendly guy. I've been in touch with him. He's been taking recipes, and they're phenomenal.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. Man, one thing, and again, we've had our conversation, that one Bond guy meets, and we've done our conversation. But for those who don't know, you live in China, and you do so many Bond things, and you do, you capture them, whether it's working out, cooking or getting dressed up. We had Safari Jacket Sunday, which was amazing. I loved it. And I mean, for those who don't know, be sure to follow, Fleming Never Dies. And you'll see all of that great stuff coming over there from China. But it's such a cool thing, and I have to agree with you. The way that Ian Fleming, and I've been finding this, the way that Ian Fleming gets so descriptive about whether it's a dish, whether it's a drink, location, describing a scene, is something you will never get from the films. So that is why, I mean, when they were in New York City, while he was describing, and also too, this book was actually kind of now it was really, really what's the way to put it? It was very it touched on a lot of topics and got a lot of fire for being very, very descriptive on certain things. And now when you read it, I was surprised on what I was reading. I was like, oh my goodness, there's literally a chapter that was titled something that I'm not going to say, but it was like, oh my goodness, Fleming. Wow. But he was just so descriptive on certain things, and I think that was part of his nature and the way that he wrote, which, again, you'll never get from a film. You'll only get it in novels.
And I'd often, like I say, before I'd read these novels, I've heard the idea that maybe he was writing back in the day, and this was all right back in the day. But I have to say, my main impression writing it was actually how astonishingly accurate his writing style is. It's very economical. He never uses too many words. It's very, very accurate. I think even at the time it was shocking. And sometimes he wrote to shock.
Yeah.
Decades later, it still works.
Yeah. I mean, I can attest to that. That some of the chapter that I'm talking about, I'm sure it shocked me. And there's a lot of things, not only that, but a lot of different things, like you said, are so accurate. And I was like, oh my goodness, wow. There's so many moments that you get in the books, and especially for Live and Let Die, that are memorable and you won't forget. And I mean, whether you are more of a fan of the books or more of a fan of the movies, I mean, you got to indulge. And this one is one of my favorites. I'm not gonna lie, I'm into Moonraker right now, and I'm really getting excited in that. But for Ian Fleming's second novel, I think he did a really, really cool job with the way he did it. So, yeah.
And some of the language you mentioned, it gets a throwback. So in Diamonds Are Forever, it comes up again. And he makes a little reference back to it. So it's not the last you'll hear of that kind of thing.
Right. Oh boy. So yeah. I mean, and it's really cool too because the way, again, I'm going off of the descriptive part. You know, he was talking about the restrooms were using florists. You know, and it's really cool because it's still here today. It's something that you can physically touch. There's a lot of things that as Bond brands you can physically touch, and it all started. And our affinity with these Bond brands really just started from a gentleman's words on paper, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Like, if he would have never put florists in the novels, we probably wouldn't even care. But, so it's kind of cool if you think about it. So,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, as we start to close here, are there any final thoughts? Any, recommended chapters that you would love people to, really look into as they read, and any closing thoughts that you may have?
I feel that the opening sentence, there are moments of great luxury in the life of a secret agent. I feel if that doesn't grab your interest, what does? So just read the opening page and see where it takes you.
Definitely. Love it. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for being a part of Fleming and Friends, another episode that, I haven't put one out in a while because I was focusing on thrifting for Bond, but it's very great. As they say, it's always great to go back to Fleming, and coming back and spending a little bit of time with you. I know it's late here in California and earlier over there for you, but this is the greatness of technology, and it's an honor to talk to you every time. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your day for chatting about Fleming and Bond.
Pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
Definitely. And again, where can we find you on Instagram?
So my Instagram handle is Fleming Never Dies. I post generally daily if I can. Life gets in the way sometimes. Sometimes more daily, just to make up for it.
Definitely. And again, Thomas is a great friend of mine. I go follow him. I definitely recommend it. He is definitely one of those that know a lot about Bond, traveling, and anything that has to do with it. So everyone, thank you for watching, and thank you for being a part of our chat here about Live and Let Die, Ian Fleming's second novel. If you guys want, go ahead and start a chat in the comments below, or hit me up if you want to talk about anything maybe we didn't bring up in the conversation. I would love to talk and chat. So, Thomas, you have a great afternoon, and I will have a great evening. All right.
See you later.
Take care, everyone. Be safe.